This question comes from literally everyone who has ever looked at a map of Earth and noticed that about 70% of it is covered in water. What would happen if the oceans instantly evaporated? Not dried up slowly, not boiled away over millions of years, just poof, gone in a flash. Let's start with the obvious. Without oceans, the world would look extremely weird. The Atlantic and Pacific would turn into enormous, empty scars, like the planet forgot to finish loading in a video game. You'd be able to walk from New York to London without ever needing a boat. Well, you wouldn't actually make it that far, because you'd be dead, but at least the option would exist. The very first thing that happens is that all that water over 1.3 billion cubic kilometers suddenly becomes water vapor in the atmosphere. That's about 300 times more water than is currently floating around in the air. The atmosphere would instantly become a suffocating soup of humidity. Breathing would be impossible. Your lungs would feel like they were trying to inhale a hot shower, and you'd pass out almost immediately. On the plus side, your skin would look great for the 2 minutes before civilization collapsed. Next comes the temperature problem. Water has an incredible ability to absorb heat. The oceans act like Earth's air conditioner, keeping the climate relatively stable. Without them, the planet would heat up like a car parked in Arizona in July. Temperatures would soar by dozens of degrees almost overnight. Imagine every place on Earth feeling like Death Valley, except without the gift shops. But that's just the surface. The real nightmare is in the food chain. Oceans aren't just big pools of water, they're home to countless ecosystems. Plankton, the tiny organisms that float in the upper layers of the sea, produce at least half the oxygen we breathe. No oceans means no plankton, and no plankton means we're all on a strict 2-minute oxygen diet before things go very, very badly. And then there's the weather. Most of our rain, storms, and hurricanes are powered by evaporation from the sea. Without oceans, the entire water cycle would collapse. No more clouds drifting over continents, no rivers replenished by rainfall, no snow on mountaintops. Agriculture would die almost instantly. The only water left would be in lakes, rivers, and whatever you manage to hoard in your bathtub before the apocalypse. On the bright side, meteorologists would finally have an easy job. Tomorrow's forecast, everywhere, forever, is hot, dry, and deadly. Okay, but what about the land itself? If the oceans vanished, we'd suddenly expose massive underwater mountain ranges, deep trenches, and long-forgotten shipwrecks. The Mariana Trench would no longer be 7 miles under the sea, it would just be a 7-mile deep hole in the ground. You could technically climb it, though you wouldn't get very far before you ran out of oxygen or got crushed by collapsing rock. Small details. And speaking of collapsing, the Earth's crust would freak out without the pressure of all that water pressing down on it. Seafloors would crack, volcanoes would erupt, and earthquakes would ripple across the continents. Entire coastlines would crumble as the ground adjusted to its new, terrifying weight loss program. Oh, and remember all that vapor in the sky. It wouldn't just hang out politely. The sudden injection of billions of tons of water would supercharge the greenhouse effect, trapping heat like a planet-sized sauna. The temperature could rise to Venus-like levels. The atmosphere itself might even destabilize, boiling away into space over time. In other words, Earth would turn into the solar system's newest barbecue pit. At this point you might be wondering, is there any upside at all? Well, yes. You'd have unlimited access to treasure. Billions of tons of gold, silver, and shipwreck loot currently sitting at the bottom of the ocean would finally be within reach. Of course, since everyone else is also dying of suffocation and starvation, the jewelry market might not be all that competitive. You can't really pay for bread with a chest of pirate coins when there's no bread and no one left to sell it to you. So, to summarize, if the oceans instantly evaporated, Earth would become a hot, suffocating wasteland with no food, no water, collapsing landscapes, and an atmosphere spiraling out of control. Life would end in a matter of hours to days. And while you could technically walk to Europe, you wouldn't live long enough to brag about it. The oceans aren't just pretty beaches and nice vacation spots, they are the beating heart of the planet. Take them away, and Earth dies almost instantly. Which, come to think of it, makes our original question a little silly. If the oceans ever did instantly evaporate, you wouldn't have time to ask what happens next. You'd be too busy choking on the thickest, hottest sauna in the universe.